Well, I guess somebody had a little bit too much turkey. I'm guessing collectively the Sharks themselves as a team were still in turkey hangover mode because, quite frankly, that team looked like it was in a tryptophan coma. Anyhow, we'll talk about all that and more on this edition of Teal Town After Dark. But first, if you want to be a part of the show and Teal together and interact with us, chat with us and fellow Sharks fans on the page or the social media channels that we got going on. That would be the Twitter, the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube chat, of course, SoundCloud, Reddit, and all of the shenanigans that go along in the Discord. Find everything else and some more great articles up on tealtownusa.com. Today, I am happy to be joined by Al Martinet. Al, how are you doing this evening?
Hey, how you doing? Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Oh, yes. Happy Thanksgiving indeed. And, quickly right off the hop there, Al, what are your some wide brush thoughts and just where the team is at right now?
Okay, so this is the last 4 of the last 5 games James Reimer has started in net. I'm kind of surprised he started tonight. Or let me back that up. I'm surprised Hill didn't start against Ottawa. And then that way you would have had a fresh Reimer for against the Maple Leafs. But you know, the first period was back and forth, but the second period is where the Sharks really lost it.
Yeah. I mean, that second period was just very, very lackluster, and they kind of got lulled to sleep a little bit by the Maple Leafs. And, after that, it just seemed like it really went downhill from there. And, I don't think that they really put too much of a pressure against the Maple Leafs in that third period and kind of just let it go. And I think at this point, the Sharks have probably, it seemed mentally like they kind of moved on a little bit. And it seemed like, that they kind of were already in that third period, were already kind of forlorn about the eventual outcome. And that's kind of what it seemed like to me.
For me, like this is still a 1-2 game at the end of the first period. You could have still made this competitive, in the second period. But the Leafs are a very good team, top to bottom, and they're also really good right now. They beat the Kings, I think, 6-2 on Wednesday or Thursday, or I think it was Tuesday. Either way, their last game they beat the Kings 6-2, pretty convincingly, and it wasn't even close. And they're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference. And right now, like the Sharks against competitive playoff teams are just not showing up. This is a consistent theme that I've seen. And, I think the last team the Sharks beat, it was against Carolina, but Carolina
still
was a real
took over,
slogfest.
And it took overtime, and didn't really look to. I mean, they didn't really give up much defensively, but they also didn't really look all that dominant either. It seemed like it was two very defensively minded teams kind of going at it.
I mean, honestly, like Carolina should have even won that game. Like the fact that the Sharks got 2 points out of that game. We're talking like the last decent playoff team that the Sharks have beaten. We're talking like Minnesota, but I'm not a fan of like Minnesota at all. So, why don't we just get to the first period and go down the list?
Yeah. So we've been avoiding it, of course, because the Maple Leafs, I mean, they score right off the bat, 32 seconds in. William Nylander is 8th on the season from Tavares and Riley. And, I mean, I guess it was kind of emblematic of the game, like not really ready to play. A team that kind of just fumbled the puck in their own kind of defensive zone and got victimized by a really, really good Toronto Maple Leaf team, and that top line, it just, it can overwhelm you, and they were not
Yeah.
ready.
I mean, when the Leafs are good, it's not just the big three, it's the big four. When William Nylander is one of those top billings, I mean, they paid him like a top four, and when he shows up, he's one of the best. But he did go through a goal, drought recently. I think this was his seventh game drought, or this goal ended his seventh game drought. But honestly, like if he's going good, like this team is red hot right now. So um, it's good to see him get going, but not against the Sharks. And I'm
Yeah.
speaking as a fantasy hockey player.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was nice to see the team kind of bounce back and push back a little bit. Nick Bonino getting a goal in his second, on back-to-back games, so that's awesome to see. Gregor and Carlson with the assist there, that coming in at 441 or 444. And at first I thought, okay, maybe right after that goal was scored, I was like, okay, maybe they're kind of getting their feet into it. Maybe they're kind of just took a little bit to kind of wade into the game, but they're here and they're going to be pulled along into the deep end by Toronto. Yeah. But then Wayne Simmons comes back and just kind of puts the dagger in that good feeling that they had. Wayne Simmons is second on the season. Kempf and Ritchie with the assist there, and that comes at 5:16, so the very next shift. And I think it's been kind of a mark of this team that they really I guess are bipolar in the fact that they can go through some really good stretches and they can get some really, really good feel good moments, but then equally so there are these big upsets that happen, whether it's a goal that happens in the first minute of a game, or whether it's in the last minute of the game, or just a goal at a critical time, kind of killing off the mojo. It seems like they never can really dictate the tempo of the game. It's like they're always kind of catching up, and they're always kind of playing to however the other team wants. And I think we saw it in that game against Ottawa, where Ottawa kind of really started to dictate the physical play at the beginning of the game, and that kind of brought the Sharks into it. But the Sharks now playing it against a skilled team, against a team that's very much on the puck possession and just a swarm mentality in Toronto. I don't think that they have they don't have the pieces to go against them, and they don't have the pieces to match up 1 through 6 on the on the first two lines, or 1 through 4 on the D. And I think that the Sharks kind of got caught playing Toronto's game a little bit.
I mean, having Toronto score the first goal in the first 30 seconds was not a good sign, but your big hope going into this game was that like Toronto was starting their third string goalie tonight. I mean, Joseph Woll, hats off to him. He played decent, but like he's not your starting goalie. And Campbell, who might be your Vezina candidate so far this season for just like in the league in general, he's been great, but like Joseph Woll was your starter in that. And the Leafs are very, very, they were trying to limit pucks going to the net of all times for a reason, because I think the Bonino goal was pretty much a really light goal, and you thought you could get some momentum, but that Wayne Simmons tip in front of the net really did kind of kill all momentum for the rest of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think going into that second period, we had said that things had gotten a little compounded, but it just kind of, it starts right in that first 5 minutes. I mean, Austin Matthews getting his ninth on the season, Bunting and Liljegren with the assist there at 4:57. And at that point, to me, guys, I just thought that at that point, that is kind of when the Sharks were resigned with their fate. And then, of course, 5 minutes later, John Tavares follows up again with his 10th on the season on the power play. And, if anybody had any hopes of mounting anything, I mean, that one kind of killed it, right then and there. Nylander and Marner getting the assists there. And again, now we're starting to talk about special teams again. I mean, we're talking the PK is starting to leak a little bit of oil. The power play is just not producing enough. And we're talking again, Al, about Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson being on the same power play and, just trying to continually pound your head into a brick wall, hoping that you're going to break through.
I will say that, Austin Matthews is just a supreme talent. You also, Jonathan Tavares is also really, really good. This is a really good power play. And the thing with Austin Matthews this year that I've seen is that he's doing more things off the puck, even on the power play. He's directing the puck. He's telling the defense to shoot, not the defense, the D line to just shoot. To the point where he can just basically cash in on the power play. That's the main thing with the Toronto Maple Leafs right now. And in terms of what's going on with Brent Burns and Erik Karlsson on the same power play, honestly, I don't know. I don't even know if there's a solution at the moment, because you hope that just enough reps will eventually solve that out. But we've seen almost 3 years of it. And I don't think you're going to have a solution of it, because we just seen time and time again, these guys just probably do not work well together. And we've given it time, but I don't think it's going to happen quite yet.
Yeah, I mean, and how long is it going to take, Bob Bugner to get it through that it's just not going to work? I mean, I understand trying to put together your top players on a power play when things are going rough and you're trying to manufacture some kind of offense. And I think the idea there was to try and get, some more manufactured offense on that power play, because I think he's seeing the same trends that we are with the power play, kind of trending in the wrong direction. But honestly, they had 3 power plays tonight. The first 2 that they rolled Burns and Karlsson out on the same pairing, in that first minute of the power play, it did not look good. It just seemed like it was 2 players deferring back and forth from each other, trigger shy. And not only that, but I am not really a fan of the way Erik Karlsson seals up the boards. I don't think he seals up the boards very well, and he lets a lot of pucks get past him on the blue line. And, Brent Burns is kind of a free-for-all, right? He either's going to get it and, snap a quick wrister on net, or it's going to get by him. And when you have 2 of those players that are not, let's just say, not defensively focused first, that's scary. And especially when you're playing against a transition team like Toronto, who can transition with guys on the PK.
For me, if you look at the first 5 to 10 games, the Sharks on the power play, they were actually doing a lot of movement between the forwards and creating space for their defensemen. Last year and even the year before that, a lot of the times you would just have the standard point from the Burns shot from the point, and defenses would just know what to do time and time again. And you have to give Erik Karlsson space, you have to give Brent Burns space, but if there's no space for them to work with, then regardless of how good they are, it does not matter where the shot is. So I don't know if that's just a coaching fault, because we've seen this now for almost 3 years, but maybe just move the puck with the forwards, drive the puck between the net or behind the net. But, I just want to see more movement between left or right and get more pucks to the net.
Yeah, no, I agree, and we've got AJ manning the Zoom conference. So thank you, AJ. He's going to be feeding us some quotes in. Bugner confirms that Reimer will start against Chicago on Sunday, so that's very, very interesting. Then we've got another little stat that that Age is putting up for us, Burns had 9 points during a 6-game streak. 6-game point streak during the COVID protocol. Since players have returned versus Colorado 6 games ago, Burns has 0 points. So again, it's the whole alpha dog. Is it the whole alpha dog? Whose blue line is it? And will these two ever coexist on the same blue line? And I think we've continually seen that it's difficult for them to integrate those two players together. It really is, and I just don't think that they have very much chemistry together, and I think that they both want the puck a lot of the time.
So if Reimer is starting against Chicago, that makes 6 out of the last 7 he started. Now Hill obviously started or came in for Reimer halfway through the second period, but
which I thought was a good move. I mean, I thought that was a good move, and I thought, one thing I wanted to bring up was that it was interesting because, Adin Hill had gotten passed up on a few different starts. So it's like, okay, we're going to get Adin Hill in. We're going to get to see kind of what he's looking like in a mop-up. And I thought he played very well because I thought Toronto had some really big transitional, comebacks, and I thought that he weathered them pretty well. And was it enough to buy him a start? I don't know.
I don't get it because I mean, like I already said it before, you give Hill the start against Ottawa, give Reimer some time just to rest up because almost if I'm reading this right, 8 of the last 10 have been Reimer.
Right.
That's just not sustainable. You're burning out your goaltender to the point where he just can't be productive. His
Niemi-esque.
Yes. I like Reimer, but I mean, Hill was the guy you traded for. So I don't know if there was something going on, like some injury or something mental, but again, against Washington, he wasn't great, but you got to keep going to him.
Yeah. Especially if this team is, a team that's still in transition, right? I mean, this isn't a team that's going to, it's not expected to make a lot of noise and stuff. And really, you're trying to integrate new players and trying to, still develop what you got. And that would lend itself to having Adin Hill try and get as many starts as he can to, get it underneath his belt. But again, I think there's been questionable coaching decisions, whether or not it's the root of all of the issues. I don't think so. I mean, there's still, to me, I'm still seeing a lack of talent, especially up front. I think I'm still concerned with the foot speed on the defense. I think that's still been, very much something that has been exploited against. Now, I like when Hataka is in the game, and I feel that he added a lot of speed. And I think to a certain extent, I've liked what I've seen from Radim Šimić in his return. But I don't think that you can have both a Radim Šimić and a Marc-Édouard Vlasic, on a same pairing and expect that pairing is going to, magically gain some foot speed.
Yeah, during the COVID protocols, Šimić was obviously out, but Milton stepped up and he was great with Erik Karlsson. The thing with that COVID stretch was Ryan Merkley was pretty decent, and there was calls to, potentially trade Šimić for something else.
I think we were talking about that.
Yeah, and I'm just not too sure what you do with him because he still has another year on that contract. Yeah. And that's, I don't know what you do about it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, Steve, thank you for the comment. I really want to see how we do through 8 to 10 divisional games. It is starting to feel like the early season magic that has given way to statistics, though, unfortunately. And I think, Steve, you're on to something. I think we've both kind of talked a little bit about losing Eklund, and him being a potential spark plug. You also have to remember we're missing Darlene as well, who's
Yep.
also an important factor in the offense. So I think a little bit of that youth exuberance is kind of out of the lineup right now. But I also think that this is a team that's also still not sure what its identity is. And it's still a team that, is it going to be defensive some nights? Is it going to be offensive another? I mean, because tonight we'll take a look on the shots on goal and just go period by period. 8 shots on goal in the first period. Second period they had 11 shots on goal, and then in the third they had 16 shots on goal. And really, that's when Wall really stood up quite well. But 35 shots on net tonight. But it didn't really seem that way. It felt as if the majority of the grade A chances was held by Toronto. And I don't know, man. I just felt like maybe it's just my pessimism in the offense right now. But this is a team that's really struggling to generate quality chances in the zone.
Yeah, I mean, I know we just said a bunch of stats, but I think the one stat that kind of illustrates that is the Sharks won most of their faceoffs, 65% in the first period. And then in the second period, it was down to 39%. Now, some of that's because the Sharks took 2 power plays or took two penalties.
Yeah, I get
Yeah, and you know, Toronto was obviously going to have the puck most of the time, yada yada yada. But Toronto controlled most of that second period and controlled, the net most of it. This is what a good team does: is they eliminate good chances, and just if you think you're going to get a good shot, you're going to screen the goalie and at least eliminate all those bad shots.
Yeah. No, I agree. And, we're also kind of looking at checking the ice times as well. And interesting, tonight, the ice time was very distributed on the back end. You look at across, and no defenseman had more than 24 minutes. And that was, of course, led by Brent Burns. So that's good to see that the defensive ice time has started to really be spread apart evenly. But again, I just wonder, because there is such a deferment between Burns and Carlson, it just creates this imbalance, and I think we all see it. And
Yeah.
At this point, Al, I don't know if it's remedy outside of a trade of one of those two. And
Of Burns or Carlson.
yeah, I think that, I think we've danced around it for a long time, but
I mean, I don't think you can trade either one. Brent Burns is probably still a capable forward and capable defenseman if you wanted to do it either way. But still, no movement clause on Burns, no movement clause on Erik Karlsson. I kept my expectations pretty low on this team this season for pretty much. I mean, if you look at what they brought in this season, it was really just William Eklund and Bonino and Reimer.
Cogliano and Reimer and Aiden Hill.
But that's not nearly enough to replace the forward depth, and that's always been the issue. And that was going in thinking you were going to have Kane for 20 games. Now, I think they've done better than we ever would hope, especially with knowing that you're going to have Kane with this suspension. Now he's going to come back in 2 games against New Jersey. I thought they did great during this stretch, but we can get into that if you really want to. But honestly, I've kind of resigned to myself thinking that once they sent William Eklund back to the Swedish team, that Kane was going to be back on this team, which is going to piss off the fan base, and it should. But the Hockey Hall of Fame isn't the best of good people.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're trying to say is the Hall of Fame is littered with people that are not of great ilk, meaning he can still play and he can still give you something, and he's still quite skilled, but the person himself is just, at this point, it's well documented. We don't have to go over it. But no, I think you bring up a good point about what is to happen with Evander Kane, and I've kind of always said it that if Kane is coming back, then I think you can kiss Hurdle goodbye. I think that train is kind of will set. You're right, not train, but that sun will set on Hurdle being here with Kane in the mix, because there was just so much, not animosity, but just so much just not wanting to play with each other anymore, and I think that again, we have to kind of look and see what is going to be the foundation of this team going forward. I mean, of course it's going to be Eklund, but I mean, do you want to make Hurdle the potentially one of the higher paid forwards on the team, and then you start to think about, okay, how is that contract going to be structured in with Timo Meier, because he's going to be up and coming for a contract soon, and then so there's a lot of permutations here, and I think that every little bit that the Sharks do to push Hurdle away, I think we'll just kind of push him into the arms of somebody else. You know what I mean? Like just the little things. It's like, Kane coming back, or not being offered another year, on a contract, wanting an 8-year versus a 7. Those kinds of things.
For me, like, I'm looking at the chat and people are talking about the Sharks are kind of talked about retained salary, and yeah, I think it's great to publicly state that, but let's bear in mind that most teams have been financially stifled with just like COVID. Like,
and who's going to want to trade for him? I mean, who wants to bring that in? Like, especially if it's a team going well, Al. I mean, who would want to bring that into the locker room? It's a distraction. It's it's got media circus all over it. Could potentially have, plot turns and twists. I mean, you'd have to be really oblivious or really just tone deaf to want to trade for him.
If you're saying that bringing Kane in is going to make you a better contender, well, you can just look at the Sharks, because it didn't really pan out that way. Because yeah, we made it to the Western Conference Finals, but like during that run, Kane wasn't as productive. He was he was dealing with a wrist injury from what I remember, but he wasn't as productive as we would have wanted him to be. And yeah, I know hindsight's 2020, and when we got him, he was really, really good. But when we signed to that deal, it really was Kane for Pavelski, and that was the trade-off.
Yeah.
And tonight, of course, Pavelski scores his 400th goal. So I think that was kind of funny timing, and then also just the what if of what ifs.
Yeah, no, I and again, we'll kind of talk about that moment in the franchise as to where at that moment in the franchise that Pavelski was was allowed to walk in free agency, and where the team has gone for and since. And I think at this point it's pretty obvious that he was the heartbeat and the soul of the team, and it's taken years for that little engine to be rebuilt, and quite frankly, I don't think that they have a player like Pavelski ready quite yet. I think Ferraro is that guy, but I think it's not his team yet. You know what I mean? He's not in a position to be a captain yet. He's got to lead alongside with Logan, and of course Logan brings his own style of leadership, and at this point I think we kind of all know how Logan operates. He's very self-critical, self-reflective, and
yeah,
I don't know that that's always a good match for what the team needs.
I think Logan's been better at leading, but he mostly just leads by example, and when he's not doing that, I think it's hard to get behind a locker room like that.
Yeah. Quickly, just Laurel, thank you so much for always manning it up in the in the chat. She's like, if you'd like to help support the show, you can use the Venmo tip jar. And of course, we appreciate all of the tips and all of the help that you guys send our way. Of course, we always love to do charity foundation work. We were doing something with Hockey Fights Cancer in the last week. And so we do all kinds of stuff. We do giveaways, and literally it's your money at work, right? We've seen the improvement in quality over the years, and Al sitting over there with his beautiful DSLR going on, and I've got my own setup here going on too. So it's just awesome, and you guys can directly see what your guys' tips do for the show. So appreciate that, and it's at Teal Town USA, of course, like everything else we do. So Al, we've talked a little bit about the game. We talked a little bit about Kane coming back. We've talked a little bit about the state of where the Sharks are going. I guess last little bit before we round it out. Doug Wilson today going on the IR, as it were.
Yes.
Yeah, Doug is actually going to be out on medical leave for the moment, so we wish him and the family all the best. But do you think that will kind of affect anything with the Sharks on the day-to-day, or we're kind of just still taking it as a day-by-day kind of thing, and Joe will handle any on the incoming? I think it's kind of a sensitive time, to be honest, because of Kane and what you're going to do in the next couple of games. So
I'm trying to bring up the tweet, but for the most part, I thought the main thing that was, like, of course, best wishes to him and his family, but of course, the most interesting part of it is that Doug Wilson Jr. isn't stepping into that role. So whatever is going on with it, I hope is not serious. And yeah, I'm trying to think who is stepping
Joe
in
Will.
tonight.
It's assistant.
Joe Will.
Yeah,
Joe Will.
the assistant GM.
But when I first saw Joe Will, I was like, oh, I thought this was a serious family member or issue, and hopefully this can be addressed really quickly. But yeah, it is questionable timing, of course, but yeah.
Oh, faulty synapse. She wants a little, or he or she. Sorry about the gender mix up there. Really good question about prospects and how the prospects are doing. So, Al, I know you follow a little bit along the prospects, and I know that I have as well. Who's a guy that's really standing out for you? Maybe a Barracuda player, and maybe a guy that's maybe collegiate or still in the O right now.
Let me just get to my list. Why don't you go first?
Yeah. All right. Let me go ahead and I will pick out the Barracuda. But we did talk a little bit about Ryan Merkley and his little stint up here, and I thought that he looked. I thought he looked like he was progressing quite well, and I'm happy with what I've seen from him. And I think his development is really going in the right direction. I think that there had been some question about, this will be his second year coming in pro, like second full year.
That was actually what I was going to say, but yeah, Ryan Merkley, Middleton was also another one I was going to mention, just because of the improvement from year to year.
Thomas Bordeleau has been lining it up collegiately. He's a guy that we're all very, very excited to see. I think Igor Brimov, the last I had heard, was doing fairly well. So I think that there are some really good bright spots in the prospect pipeline there, Al. But anybody else that you got tracking?
We got Brandon Coe, 36 points in 20 games. Thank you, AJ, for that. But yeah, in terms of what we're going to expect from Barracuda going forward, I just want to see consistent growth for the next season or two. For me, as I look at the long term, like, what do I expect from the Sharks? It's really just the cap situation. Like, can they get out of certain contracts? Can they continue growing the Barracuda? And it's really, what can they get out of the Erik Karlsson deal? Because that's where I'm really, really, like, right now, I think the Sharks are decent, but right now they are a 500 team, and they are just maybe the same team as last year.
Yeah. For everybody who is interested, the Sharks do put out a prospect report. You can go to the Sharks website, San Jose Shark, or it's NHL.com/Sharks. Go underneath the team tab, and underneath Next Wave Report, it is their monthly media guide / prospect guide, and it's got all of the prospects up there, whether they were drafted or Barracuda prospects, or they are non-roster guys are up there, so that's pretty cool. Like we were saying, Thomas Bordeleau, 11 points in 10 games over in Michigan. You've got Alex Young. He's got 8 points in 9 games for Colgate. You've got the goaltending, so-so in the NCAA. But over on the CHL, I know that AJ had pushed it up too. Tristan Robbins, 23 points in 13 games. Brandon Coe, 21 points in 14 games. So, yeah, there's some really good prospects on the horizon. And, just some guys that I think that we're going to be very interested to see where they will be. So, yeah, I appreciate the check-in on the prospects. And I guess we'll go to everybody's favorite segment, right?
Let's do it.
Have the goddamn common courtesy to give him a reach around.
Yeah, it's the reach around. Probably the best part of this night.
Yes.
For Friday, November 26th, this is your reach around. Rangers beat up the Bruins 5-2. Strome, Hunt, Panarin, Lafreniere, and Trouba with the goals for the Rangers. The Blackhawks beat the Blues in overtime. You've got Kyra, Hagel, and DeBrincat with your goals. For the Blackhawks, the Wild spank the Jets 7-1 in that Minnesota Winnipeg battle that Mr. Puck Guy always loves. Goligoski, Zuccarello, Hartman, Zuccarello again, Merrill, Dumba, and Kaprizov with your goals for the Wild. And Connor Hellebuck got hella roasted tonight. The Hurricanes beating up on the Flyers, and unfortunately, Ian Reed, Martin Jones was not playing. Hurricanes put up a 6 spot against Carter Hart, Aho, with 2 goals. Fast, Kotkaniemi, Lawrence, and Svechnikov with the goals over for the Hurricanes. The Ducks beat up on the Senators 4-0. Lundstrom, Grant, Terry, and Raquel with your goals for the Ducks. The Capitals beat the Panthers. Rare regulation loss for the Panthers, 4-3. Ovechkin with a hat trick. What's new?
Yes.
Tom Wilson with his 8th on the season. And Ilya Samsonov with the win there. The Predators beat the Devils 4-2. Yossi, Tomasino, Gronlund, and Carrier with the goals for Nashville. The Sabres beat the Canadiens 4-1, and it's still very troubling over in Montreal. Q fire sale starting now. Thompson, Eakin, Okposo, and Thompson again with your goals for the Sabres. The Lightning beat the Kraken 3-0. Bellemare, Colton, and Stamkos with your goals for the Lightning. The Blue Jackets beat the Canucks, the woeful Canucks, 4-2. Nyquist, Boquist, Roslovic, and Domi with the goals for the Blue Jackets. And talk about a team that had a lot of expectations, Alec. One of the teams that I was looking at, especially to kind of make the rise, is the Canucks, but they are just listless right now.
Honestly, they might be worse than Montreal, which is saying something.
That's saying something pretty bad. We've also got the Stars beating the Avalanche 3-1. Pavelski with 2 goals. Guryanov with a power play goal. 3-1 Stars. 1-0 Pittsburgh beats the Islanders. Tristan Jarry with the shutout. Kapanen with the goal. And the Penguins starting to put together something a little interesting over there in the Metro. And then, of course, tonight's game, the Maple Leafs beat the Sharks 4-1. And quickly, I mean, just get some wide brush thoughts on the Pacific Division. And I know you started a little bit about the Canucks, but anything else that you're seeing, Al, that's kind of interesting on the horizon for you?
I mean, normally teams that after the Thanksgiving break, if you're in playoff position, you're a pretty good chance to make the playoffs. And currently, right now, if I can just go to NHL.com and look up the standings, I mean, like the Sharks are not in any shape to make the playoffs, but you're number one. If you're looking at the Pacific right now, like the surprise right now is just it's still Anaheim is still in the top three.
Anaheim and Calgary. I think Calgary kind of resurrecting itself, and Daryl Sutler's pushing all the right buttons.
I mean, Daryl Sutter is a really good coach. He's a Hall of Fame coach. He got those LA Kings to the Stanley Cup.
Took a floundering Sharks program and made it something, worth watching.
That also, but like I'm not surprised about Edmonton because of course Connor McDavid.
Yep.
Draisaitl, but like, those top three teams, and like if you're gonna say like the surprise of the year is Vegas, like they're doing pretty well right now, and they also just traded for Jack Eichel. So, and I don't think personally that Jack Eichel is gonna come back in March or February, but like you still are gonna get a top 10 NHL talent in the Pacific.
Yeah, the Sharks currently sit 2 outside of a wild card spot. However, Colorado, who is tied with us in points, has 3 games in hand. And the Sharks only have 21 points in 20 games played. You look at Dallas, they're kind of also sneaking up too. They've got 20 points in 18 games. And the Kings also have 19 points in 19 games. So, the Sharks are in spitting distance, but I think from what we've seen and how hot and cold this team is, at this point, I don't see a run in them unless they're willing to really structurally commit to shooting a lot more on net and generating a lot more offense, because quite frankly, they've got to pass up a Colorado team which is underachieving. They've got to catch up to a Winnipeg team and a Vegas team that are really difficult to play against. And then Anaheim, of course, being the surprise factor from our division, those are 3 potential teams that you're going to have to climb over. 4 potential teams if you want to get back in the 3 potential if you want to get back into the top 3.
Yeah.
4 if you want to get into the wild card or secure number 1 wild card.
And like Anaheim's like a year ahead of schedule. We thought it was going to be LA with the new talent, but like, LA is going to eventually be part of that top 3 class in the Pacific. I didn't really have any doubts about Calgary just because of how much talent is there. But I think eventually Dallas is going to turn around because, 2 years ago they were in the Stanley Cup final. But of course, teams that lose in the Stanley Cup final just from either fatigue or injuries tend to just not perform well the next year. And that's kind of what happened last year with the Dallas Stars. So it wouldn't surprise me if they go on a run in the Central because Arizona, of course, is in that division now. So they can definitely get some easy wins in that division, just like every other team is. But honestly, I'm more than impressed with the Sharks at this point just because, again, you didn't have Kane for 22 games. You had a COVID stretch for 7. I think the Sharks are in way better shape than expected. And to be only 5th in the Pacific, that's still striking distance to make a run. I know I'm giving the team a lot more credit than it really deserves, but I think
we've got to call it like it is, though. This is a team that's slightly above 500, and it's a team that we were, if you were to poll a bunch of hockey fans and even Sharks fans, I mean, there wasn't a lot of optimism coming out of the cellar. So I think in general, it's been a victory insofar as the team is doing better than what I expected. Is it trending in the right direction every night? I think that's still left to be desired. Yeah. And I think that there's still some growing pains that are still going to be felt.
Like after the 4-0, start, they've been pretty inconsistent, 1 win here, then 3 losses there, and then it just against playoff teams that I've talked about, like they just get wiped across the ice, and especially against tonight, 4-1 against Toronto, 4-0 against Washington, which was really worrisome because, like, of course, either it was just bad coaching, but you leave Ovechkin wide open at his special spot, like it's just like little things like that, but. Yeah, for the Sharks to only be 4 points out of the top 3 in the Pacific. If you would have asked, the Sharks, front office, I think they would have taken it at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that pretty much wraps it up for us tonight, Al, and I appreciate you coming on. I mean, quickly, have any final wide brush thoughts and where the people can find you?
First, I want to say happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Hopefully, you're happy holidays to seeing your friends and family. Also, if you can't see your friends and family, sorry. I know that's for some. That's a very hard thing for some. Don't even have like any hockey thoughts. We kind of talked about hockey for the last 50 minutes, but yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I'm always chatting. Feel free to slide in. But happy holidays, everyone.
All right, thanks, Al. And I'm at Eric Landy. That's ErikLandi on all the social media garbage. And quickly, in case you missed it, you want to check us out across all of the different podcasting platforms. We are on and out there in Apple Podcasts, the Google Play Store, the YouTube replay, of course, SoundCloud, Spotify, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. And also check out all of the stuff that we've got going on at tealtownusa.com in case you need some more Sharks fixins. Anyhow, let's see if I can get this right. Let's keep it real. Let's keep it teal. Let's keep it real teal. Thank you, everybody, and have a great one. We will see you after the game on Sunday.